The spotted hyena, or just hyenas in general, has a PR problem. And I don't mean a small one. I mean a centuries-long, deeply embedded, culturally reinforced disaster of a reputation that has convinced most of the world that this animal is basically just a cowardly, cackling, mangy little scavenger that sneaks around waiting for other animals to do the real work so it can swoop in and steal the scraps. That's what people think when they hear the word hyena, but that image is entirely wrong. And I don't say wrong as if it's exaggerated or slightly unfair. I say that because it's just wrong. And what makes it genuinely interesting is that the truth about what a hyena is and what it does is so different from that image it has that once you see it, you kind of can't believe nobody told you sooner. So that's what we're going to do today. We're going through it all. Every myth, every misrepresentation, everything you thought you knew about the hyena that turns out to either be backwards or completely made up. Because this animal deserves so much better than what popular culture has done to it. And I think by the end of this video, you're going to agree with me.
So let's start with the thing everybody thinks they know, the laugh. Now, if you've seen The Lion King, and if you haven't, genuinely, where have you been? You know the hyena as this cackling, maniacally laughing villain that skulks around being stupid and creepy. The giggle, specifically, has become so tied to the hyena's identity that most people just accept it as part of what the animal is. But that giggle actually has a deeper meaning, because what the people who study these animals have found is that the giggle vocalization is primarily a stress response, because it comes out during moments of social anxiety, tension, competition, and submission. The pitch and frequency of that giggle also communicates the hyena's age and social rank to everyone within earshot, meaning the whole clan can hear it and immediately get information from it about who's making the sound and what's happening to them. It's not an expression of joy and it's not amusement. It is, if anything, closer to the sound of someone saying, "Okay, I get it, you outrank me, please don't bite me," encoded in a vocalization that sounds like a maniacal laugh. And this is before you even get to the full range of sounds hyenas actually make, because the giggle is just one piece of a communication system that scientists estimate includes somewhere between 11 and 28 distinct vocalizations. These include sounds like whoops, grunts, yells, yips, rumbles, and growls, just to name a few. But now, this is where the misrepresentation becomes an eye-opener, because while we've been busy treating them as the court jesters of the savannah, hyenas have quietly built a communication network that would make a telecom CEO jealous. See, researchers have not only found that they have a lot of different vocalizations, they've also found that they can assess the numerical advantage, aka count the number of members in a rival group, from the number of whoops they hear. It's not exactly advanced calculus by any means, but that's a long way from being a pumbly-voiced idiot. Their whoop call alone can travel up to 5 kilometers, and they use it to announce their location to clan members, to coordinate across huge distances, to communicate information about what's happening before anyone can even see them. And it's also a unique, individualized identifier, because each hyena has its own distinct whoop that functions like a caller ID, meaning they can tell who is screaming from miles away, which means they can decide to answer or ignore their clan member with the same energy as screening a call from an ex at 2 a.m. Even their giggle, which we misinterpreted as the jester's tune, can even function as a recruitment beacon. Probably should have mentioned that earlier, but it's whatever. So feel free to picture Scar's trio if you want. Just remember that these animals are basically running an acoustic military-grade logistical system. This is not the vocal repertoire of a dim-witted scavenger. This is sophisticated communication in an animal that scientists now say has one of the most complex vocal systems of any carnivore on Earth. But speaking of dim-witted, that myth needs to go in the trash too, because CT scans of hyena brains have confirmed that their frontal cortex, the region responsible for complex decision-making, social reasoning, and problem-solving, has developed in a direction similar to primates, not that of dogs or your average carnivore, primates. There was even a study that was done by zoologists at Duke University and the University of California, Berkeley, that found that hyenas outperformed chimpanzees on certain cooperative problem-solving tasks. The task, which was given to both the chimps and hyenas, was to pull 2 ropes simultaneously to access food. The chimps struggled with it. The hyenas, on the other hand, figured it out faster, coordinated with less conflict, and worked through the problem more efficiently.
Chimps, which are the animals we consider one of the closest relatives to humans in terms of intelligence, struggled against hyenas. In Kay Holcamp, one of the most respected researchers in this field, put it pretty directly, and I'm paraphrasing here, when she said lions are not the sharpest tools in the shed, and that hyenas, the animals everyone treats like the stupid sidekick in every nature documentary, are actually the brains of the savannah. And the structure of their society backs that up completely, because you don't build and maintain a social system that complex without some serious cognitive horsepower behind it. But before I talk about their social structure, I just want to quickly mention that this kind of cooperation is what makes them such effective hunters, because they're not just mindlessly chasing their prey, they're actively planning and cooperating with each other, which is something I'll be talking about later on in the video. But I also need you to understand that this kind of brain power also bleeds into their social intelligence by letting them know when to lead and when to follow, because in the same experiment, researchers also observed that when a dominant hyena was paired with a naive subordinate, the dominant one would let the subordinate take the lead and patiently adjusted its own movements to accommodate its partner until the new one learned the ropes. And if that wasn't enough, they found that there was an audience effect, meaning when other hyenas were watching, the experienced pair worked faster.
So where does all of this come from? The short answer is their social structure. One leading theory is that the intense pressure of living in their strict, complex, female-dominated clans has essentially forced their brains to get bigger because their society is not just a group, it's a high-stakes game of social maneuvering, because with this type of intelligence, they can recognize certain things that most animals wouldn't. They'll form political coalitions to overthrow higher-ranking rivals. They recognize third-party relationships among their clanmates. They can keep track of who is allied with whom, and they can even reconcile after fights. And this becomes even more interesting when you add the fact that these clans can have up to 130 members. That's not a pack by any means. That's a whole civilization by animal standards. And inside that civilization is again a strict matriarchal hierarchy. And this hierarchy governs everything from who eats first, who mates, who has status, and who doesn't. The females run the entire operation. And guess what else? Every single female in the clan outranks every single male, including adult males who have been around for years. And I mean every single female. From the one who was born yesterday, the one who has some kind of sickness, the one who is currently on her deathbed, and even the females with the lowest rank that they could possibly have. All of them outrank the biggest, toughest, most battle-scarred male who has spent his entire life defending the territory. And it's not just about social position, because female hyenas are physically larger and more aggressive than males, which is genuinely unusual for a mammal species, because in most mammals, males are typically bigger because they fight for access to females. In hyenas, females are bigger because they said, no, actually, we'll be doing the fighting, thank you. Now go stand over there and wait for mommy to handle business. That is a complete inversion of the social structure you see in most carnivore species, and it creates a society that is, as researchers have described it, among the most complex and sophisticated in the entire animal kingdom. Oh, and their rank is also inherited, because a female cub doesn't have to earn her position, she is born into it. So, no interviews or clawing her way up the social ladder. All she has to do is be born, and she will instantly have a higher status than every male she will ever meet for the rest of her life. Now, her rank in the clan is determined by her mother's rank. Daughters slot in just below their mothers, which means the social order has a kind of continuity and stability to it that reinforces clan cohesion over long periods of time. And these aren't loose, shifting alliances. These are structured, stable hierarchies that persist across generations. If grandma was a high-ranking female, her daughter will be a high-ranking female, so the daughter of her daughter, which is essentially her grandkid, will be a high-ranking female. That's how it works. The males, on the other hand, show up, try to be useful, leave the clan, come back to the clan, and at every single step, they are outranked by every single female cub who has not yet learned how to open her eyes properly. And the whole thing is maintained through a communication system we just talked about. Those vocalizations, those calls, that supposedly silly laugh that is actually transmitting social rank information to the entire clan in real time. Now, one thing I haven't mentioned yet is that female spotted hyenas give birth through a pseudopenis.
I wish I could tell you I was exaggerating for effect, but no. The female's clitoris has evolved to be elongated, fully erectile, and fused into a shape that is externally indistinguishable from the male's penis. And what makes this terrifying is that the birth canal runs directly through it. So when a first-time mother gives birth, she has to push a cub through an organ that is not, evolutionarily speaking, optimized for that purpose, because it's a high-risk process that can kill up to 18% of first-time mothers in the wild. Now, what do you suppose the evolutionary payoff is for giving birth like that? Why would nature do this? Why would any animal be built this way? Well, I'm glad you asked, because one leading theory from researchers like Holkamp and her team is that it forces males to ask permission, because a male physically cannot mate with a female without her complete and active cooperation. There's no forced copulation in spotted hyena clans because it is downright physically impossible, because the female has to voluntarily retract her pseudopenis and angle it forward to allow access. Without that, the male might as well be trying to mate with a brick wall. So for the first time in your life, consider the hyena not as a coward or a scavenger, but as an animal that evolved one of the most unambiguous consent mechanics in the entire animal kingdom at the cost of a genuinely horrifying childbirth experience. Think of them as animals that looked the patriarchy dead in the face and said,
"Ayo, suck my wiggly dick!"
But now we have to talk about the scavenger thing, because this is arguably the biggest myth that has followed the hyena around and done more damage to its reputation than anything else. See, the idea that hyenas are just some bottom-feeding mutts that just wait for lions to make kills and then swoop in to eat the leftovers, yeah, that's bullshit. In some ecosystems, spotted hyenas hunt more than 70% of what they eat. That means for every 10 meals a hyena eats, at least 7 of them came from an animal it personally caught and killed with its own jaws. No help and no lion leftovers. They are active, strategic, and effective hunters that kill their own prey on a regular basis. And their hunting success rate sits at around 30%, depending on the conditions, of course, which is higher than lions. You know, the animal that has been crowned the king of the jungle, even though it doesn't live in the jungle. The apex predator, the symbol of everything powerful and dominant in the natural world. Hyenas outhunt them. See, a lion will succeed on maybe 1 out of every 4 or 5 serious attempts. A hyena will succeed on nearly 1 out of 3. And if you're keeping score at home, that makes hyenas statistically better at their jobs than the animal we put on royal crests.
And the scavenging thing gets even better than that, because lions actually steal more kills from hyenas than hyenas steal from lions. That means the animal that has historically been called the thief, the scavenger, the one that takes without doing the work, is actually the one getting robbed. Yeah, the hyenas hunt, they make the kill, they do the exhausting and dangerous work, and then the lions show up and take it. And there's usually nothing the hyenas can do about it, because a male lion is about 3 to 4 times the weight of a spotted hyena, and one paw strike can kill one outright. So they just have to lie there and wait for the lion to eat its fill and leave so they can go back to their own kill. Imagine spending 40 minutes chasing your prey, successfully taking it down, and then a larger neighbor walks over, eats your dinner in front of you, and you just have to sit there and watch. Doesn't feel too good, does it? And somehow the hyena is the one with the bad reputation. I mean, come on, if that happened to any of us, we would be writing poems about the injustice we faced.
But putting the poems aside, what truly makes these animals such effective hunters is a combination of things that work together in a way most people never think about. And that combination is themselves. Yes, they can run it up to 40 miles per hour and can sustain that speed over a long distance, but more importantly, they're coordinated. They're not a mob like what some people think they are. They hunt in well-coordinated groups with vocal cues we talked about to communicate across the chase in real time, to keep the group coordinated without being in visual contact. So one hyena might be behind a termite mound, another is over a ridge, and they're still talking to each other about the prey's fatigue level, its speed, and its direction changes, all without ever laying eyes on each other. And I'm going to say this one more time because I seriously can't stress it enough. They are well-coordinated hunters.
But there's one more thing I want to talk about because I think it rounds out the full picture in a way that a lot of people miss when they're focused on the hunting and the intelligence and the social structure. And that's what the hyena actually means for the ecosystem it lives in. See, when hyenas eat a carcass, they eat the whole thing. And because of their appetite, the calcium and nutrients that would otherwise stay locked up in the bones that other predators would leave behind get broken down and returned to the soil through the hyena's digestive system, meaning the ecosystem gets things back that it would otherwise lose. That's not scavenging as a character flaw by any means. That's a function that the savanna depends on, performed by an animal specifically built to do it. And if we're being honest here, you wouldn't call a garbage truck a thief because it picks up what everyone else threw out. You'd call it essential infrastructure.
They also help regulate prey populations by targeting sick and weakened animals, and because of this, it keeps diseases from spreading through herds and keeps the prey population healthier overall, which is really the classic role of any predator, so that's really not anything special. But because they're such effective hunters, they also hunt healthy animals. And no, it's not cruelty, it's just what I would call quality control. Because a herd that knows it could get eaten at any moment is a herd that stays on the move, is a herd that doesn't overgraze one area, is a herd that maintains genetic fitness. Take the hyena out of the equation, and the whole system starts to shift in ways that cascade outwards. Too many wildebeest, too much grass being eaten down to the dirt, too much disease spreading through overcrowded herds. Then lions and other predators start going hungry because their preferred prey numbers crashed because everything is dying, and suddenly everyone is worse off. Healthy predators, healthy scavengers, healthy prey. It all connects, and the hyena is load-bearing in that system in a way its reputation has never given it credit for. So they're not the villains of the savanna, they're the maintenance crew, the hunting squad, the recycling plant, and the emergency dispatch all rolled into one package. And they have been doing this job better than lions for millions of years, while lions took all the credit.